Well, welcome to Gravity Space Radio. I'm Chris Palmore, and I've got my co-host Peter Williams in Hong Kong. How you doing there, Peter?
Doing well, thanks, Chris. How is it over in Kentucky?
It's good, man. You know, it's the sun. There's no sunrise right now, but I tell you, the blue and the clouds right now, it's pretty majestic.
Thanks for getting up so early. So I think it's your Sunday 8 a.m., my Sunday evening 8 p.m. in Hong Kong. So yeah, thanks for continuing these conversations.
Oh, for sure, man. This is a great. These are partial gratitude meetings, so it's a great way to start the day.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, I wanted to, doing a little differently here. I thought Peter and I could briefly share. I've got a book called Dear Gratitude, an anthology out. So if anybody wants to check that out, it's on Amazon. Peter is one of the writers for that, and then I was going to let Peter share his book.
Yeah, so my book is not on Amazon. Deliberately, I've just put it on my own website just so I can learn that process. It's on peterbwilliams.com. And today we're going to be talking with another creator of a book that I'll share later on once we introduce him. But it should be a fun conversation.
Awesome. Well, do you want to give a little introduction to him, or do you want to explain what's the productive accidents?
I can sort of explain the concept of productive accidents. You can think of it as serendipity or happenstance, or just things that happen that are positive, that were kind of unexpected. And today's guest is Oskar Valles, and I met him around this time last year, where I presented at Creative Mornings, and Oskar was in the audience, and he came up afterwards and he described a project he was working on that immediately resonated with me, called Dear Hong Kong, and it's about finding someone from every country on the planet that lives in Hong Kong and showcasing these individuals, but also celebrating the diversity of Hong Kong, and just creating this momentum, which I thought was amazing. And Oskar will go into more detail, but that started a conversation and a series of introductions and collaborations as usual. So a great fit for today's podcast.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and bring on Oskar then. There he is.
Hello.
Welcome, Oskar.
Good morning, Chris.
Yeah,
morning.
So thanks for joining. This is going to be fun as usual. And I do have a copy of your book, which I can grab.
There you go.
Try to get it there. That's the front cover. Lots of different cool designs and cool mix of people featured. Mm-hmm. This is, how many people did you end up including? The first version? I think it was around.
In the first version is 80 people.
Oh, 80. Okay.
We believe that it's 150 nationalities represented in Hong Kong. So we're looking to make a second book, and we're hoping to have you there.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, and definitely, Chris, when you do come out here at some stage, when things settle down and travel is possible, we'll do a little tour of Hong Kong, and that'll definitely include where Oskar lives, out at Llama Island. It is a funky little venue. No cars from memory. It's so it's a good place to just walk and bikes, and lots of little laneways and some cool spaces.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a perfect place for a gratitude pop-up.
Absolutely. One of the junctions there, you could easily grab people and interview them and create a bunch of videos. Yeah, no brainer. In fact, I just had the image of the guy who sits at the bookstore at the corner. I think they call him someone the book. Do you remember? What's his name?
Yes, Nick.
Nick the book.
Nick the book.
In that corner.
Yeah, literally Bobsy or someone I think might have said, just look for Nick the book. And I had this long conversation with him. And it turns out he writes about rock concerts. He does reviews, I think. It was one of the things he's done in the past. We had quite a long conversation about that. But he's a character.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice.
And he claims that he can talk for 1 hour with anybody about one of the books he has there, any of the books. So
I did find it a little bit difficult to break away. I was on the way to meet Greg March, and his two boys that had just been given BMX bikes and skateboards for Christmas, and so I was going out to have a ride on my bike with them and teach them how to bunny hop, which was a fun little exercise too. Anyway, very cool. So Oskar, I think it'd be really cool, even though we've sort of clicked on day one after that Creative Mornings conversation. just to hear your story, go back to everything, all the way to how you got to Hong Kong and how you discovered this project for Dear Hong Kong would be really cool for everyone to learn about.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's one of the questions that we ask people when, like, why did they come to Hong Kong? And the answers are quite boring. It's like either they came for work, make money, or they came for love, or just out of any serendipity. But it's, I mean, in my case, I came for work. I was working for a Spanish corporate to connect the finance department in Spain with all of the countries in Asia. And it was a very exciting thing. But after a few years, I realized, like, okay, I'm working too much, and I'm not really giving space for the things that I really want to do in life. And so at some point, I realized, like, okay, I love being here. I'm going to stay in Hong Kong, but then I'm going to start things that are more purpose driven and actually align with who I am. So it's a journey, to realize who you are, and then once you tap into it, it's really easy. You don't care so much about money. You care about making a difference and also feeling content, feeling happy. So it sounds very strange, but I started going to cooking school. So I left the finance job and then I went to cooking school and I started learning how to cook. And for me, that's something that it was very soothing. And that's knowledge. Sorry?
What type of cooking?
Well, just like French cooking, like Western, the basics of Western cooking. And it was kind of a meditation for me. Like it totally brought me to the different energy, and I started, feeling more content and everything. And this idea of the Dear Hong Kong book, I had it, I think 3 years after I came to Hong Kong. I've been here for 10 years. So while working in a corporate, I really didn't have time to do this. But this, I mean, I have many ideas every day, but this was an idea that was not leaving me. It was knocking there like, hey, I'm here. Please give me attention. And I've always been very curious about cultural diversity and stories of people. And also, I could feel that there was a little bit of a divide between the international community in Hong Kong and the local community. So yes, it's a very international city, but the two communities don't talk much. So I thought, like, okay, it's an opportunity to have an impact, a small impact on making a society a little bit more tolerant, a little bit more inclusive. Okay. And then I started with my colleague Eggy Lam. She's a local here, and we started working together. And it's been 2 years already. We have been interviewing people, and it's been a beautiful journey. And my levels of happiness and contentment just skyrocketed by doing this, because I was meeting a lot of people. I was inspired. Every one of the stories, we were looking for very inspiring people, and it completely changed my perception of this city, about the society, about the world. Because every day we were visiting a different country, right, and a different culture, and so yeah, lots of. I mean, not a lot of monetary gain, actually zero, but like a lot of intangible gains, which is something that I start to appreciate more. Even if it's in one of the most expensive cities in the world, then it's possible to do that, right? And,
What are a few of the people that you've met that stand out? If you want to put a spotlight on 3 of them or so, who do you think really caught you by surprise?
I'll save you for later, because we already interviewed you, but I'm not going to mention in this part. We will mention later. So I don't know, like a lot of people. So we came across different people that came to Hong Kong. They were not necessarily born here, and they started charities and social enterprises. So the founder of Mother's Choice is a charity here that looks after teenage pregnant women, and they've been here for years. And the local community know them, but what they don't know is who is behind. So is this amazing lady that was sharing me in the interview, like everything that she does it with kindness. So she chose to be kind to everybody, like including she has many children and grandchildren. So it struck me like at some point in your life, you say like, I'm going to be kind to everybody. I'm going to choose love unapologetically, regardless of anything.
Funny story.
With that.
Just as a little tangent before you speak about someone else, I accidentally, productive accident, met the founder of Mother's Choice and her daughter, who's the current CEO, Alia, when I was playing golf at this par 3 competition late last year, and it was late on Sunday afternoon, and they were about to do the presentation ceremonies or whatever, and there was a big sort of outdoor tent, and I just had a snack or something. I was trying to find a chair to sit at, and there was only one chair available. There's probably 100 people in this undercover area. And I sat down next to these 2 women and started talking to them and getting their story. Turns out, founder of Mother's Choice and her daughter. And then I discovered that their son, Shafan, is on the board of Resolve Foundation. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even know that connection until, that random conversation happened. And they were there to accept a donation on behalf of this golf tournament that they'd raised all the money on behalf of Mother's Choice. So all these little things kept on happening, and then we've subsequently, met for lunch and caught up and worked out other ways that we can support them. So, yeah, it's amazing what they've been able to do with Mother's Choice. Okay, next person.
Sorry, Chris.
I was gonna say, what country is she from?
U.S.
Oh, she's American in the book. Okay, awesome. Okay,
yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there you go. Let's celebrate America right there. That's a good. Good outcome.
Can I just for a second? I want to piggyback on the back of America real quick. That's funny. That sounds weird, doesn't it? So my wife and I went and got vaccinated yesterday, and that was really, really happy that here in the States, if you're 40 and older, you can get vaccinated. But what put it in perspective was that one of her. My wife's from Colombia, Oskar, and she just moved over here. So if you're in Colombia and you're in your 40s, you most likely, possibly, will get vaccinated in December. Possibly, right? Mm-hmm. And a friend of hers who's in her 40s actually flew to Chile to get vaccinated. So I was sitting yesterday with my wife going, this is so amazing that we can drive 15 minutes from home, get this vaccination. Just putting it in perspective, like if we were in Colombia, we'd have to leave the country to get vaccinated. Anyways, Go ahead. I just wanted to say, I mean, obviously there's good and bad things of all countries, but I'm very grateful that I could get vaccinated yesterday and that, I'm 42 years old. So go ahead.
Well, hang on. Just you've created another little tangent. Because
okay.
We were due to have our vaccinations this evening, but unfortunately this week they put a temporary halt on the Pfizer biotech vaccine because I think they had some issues with the packaging or something that they're just double checking quality control. But yeah, they actually lowered the age from 30 and above in Hong Kong recently. So we made our bookings. We're all scheduled to go. But yeah, it was cancelled. But it'll happen. But I don't know if you've had yours yet, Oskar, or are you still?
No, it's scheduled for next week. But I think it will take another few days. I think they're going to resume it, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah. But anyway, that'll be a good step in the right direction, hopefully. And then eventually, I hope they reduce the amount of quarantine you need to do if you do travel overseas and come back. Because at the moment, it's 3 weeks here. If you come back in from anywhere overseas, which is significant, and it's a big barrier to a lot of things. So anyway. Let's keep going. Oskar, who else do you think?
I know, Chris, you're going to say like, you don't look like you're over 30. But yes, we are.
Thank you. Yeah, all of us here. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you haven't got...
All right, so gray is giving you away a little bit, just a little bit. But yeah, apart from that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, next person is a common friend, Bobsy. Bobsy is from Lebanon, and he was sharing us his story from being like a soldier in the Lebanon war, and he could bring us there, right? With his
right?
With his story, yes. And it happened with many other interviewees. Like we were actually traveling to the wars in the countries, and we could feel the struggle that they were having, and I think it's good to have like for local people to have a different perspective of what the world is and what's happening everywhere, and how, I don't know, we're kind of privileged to be here, one of the safest places in the world. So it's I think it's full gratitude that we should have to happen to live in this beautiful city. So, I mean, Bobsy's story is very inspiring, like how he transitioned from that into what he became. Now, almost like a guru and a spiritual leader, and also like a amazing entrepreneur, like social entrepreneur, and how he's helping Hong Kong to change how people eat in Hong Kong, and how people care about the planet, and how people care about themselves. There's another inspiring story. Just to mention, because we want to feature like a diversity of people. We have like a 11-year-old boy. Mm-hmm. He's representing Hong Kong, and he's like the Greta Thunberg of Hong Kong. So he's striking for climate change, and he's like so articulate. Like we were interviewing him, and we didn't have the impression that we were interviewing an 11-year-old boy. He was like he really had these solid ideas about how the world should be run, and so it's very inspiring to see like new generations can be so aware and so conscious about the planet and everything. So I mean, I can go on and on with.
No, I know. I mean, it's funny. I met Bobsy the first time, I think, at a Clock and Flap concert years ago, and also through his cafe, Mena Cafe. So, Chris, Mena Cafe, I think they've had 2 or 3 destinations or locations, but the most recent one took over what used to be a Burger King, or the equivalent of Burger King, which is unusual for one of those to go out of business or to shut down a venue. And he's brought in this, vegetarian, vegan sort of place, which has an upstairs sort of kind of event space, which hasn't really been fully utilized, I guess, because of COVID and everything yet. But I'm sure that'll be a great venue for documentaries and talks and things over time. So, yeah. And I met Bobsy when I went out to Lama that day, and went to his compound, which he's had out there. This, sort of retreat that he has. I think he's had it since about 25 years or so. And he showed pictures of how he planted with a group of friends, I think 50,000 trees, because when he first got there, it was pretty bare, and now it's like a jungle type thing. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. Anyway, interesting story. So we'll enjoy the conversation with him.
Yeah, Oskar, speaking, what I like to do is so for instance, you met Bobsy. Like I like to hear the backstory of like, where's the gratitude? Like so for example, how did you meet him, and who were the connectors that made that happen? Like, what was the situation? It's like, for example, we're sitting here right now, the 3 of us, right? And like, this is really cool, but like, how did this happen? Right? Like who are the, me and Peter, for example, our gratitude goes, there's layers to that, obviously, but we have a mutual friend, named Chris Shimbra, who just emailed me briefly, you should connect with Peter Williams, and he sent us all really brief emails, me and the other guy named Chris Davis. And that's how we met. Right. And here we are. And I'm really grateful for that. But when you talk about somebody like Bobsy, I'm sure there's tons of stories. I'm curious, who were the connectors? What were the elements of gratitude that led you to meeting him?
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is that there were so many people that were fundamental in like reaching out for all of this community of inspiring people. Peter is one of them. Like I admire Peter because he's a super connector. And the way like this sentence that you just mentioned, like you should meet this person because you intuitively think that you may have a chemistry or some connection. Yeah. So, I mean, Peter opened up a lot of, Bobsy himself, he opened up a lot of connections for us afterwards. But I think the connection with him, it was like oftentimes like we know somebody. Like I used to go to Mana, his restaurant and everything, and we had common friends. So I just reached directly to him and said, like, hey, we have this idea. And the reaction from people is like immediate, like, yes, I want to be in. Because that's something meaningful. That's something that, and actually they feel like, okay, I like to be seen as somebody like it's inspiring in Hong Kong. But
And
Yeah,
then
it's
also Tony Verb, who we interviewed in one of the earlier podcasts, who you've met, Chris. He was also representing Hungary in the book, which was pretty cool.
Oh, wow. So with Bopsy, though, you're saying that you had already known about him and you would visit his restaurants. You were just aware of him because he was doing his thing in Hong Kong. Okay, well, there you go. That's beautiful. You experienced who he was, yeah.
Sometimes what we do is we ask people around, and then the magic happens when two people that they don't know each other, they point at the same person.
Right.
Then we will have to go farther. That's we got the person.
Yeah.
And that's
awesome.
quite often. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the Chris Schembra story, I only discovered his project. So I don't know if you've heard of this, Oskar. Chris Schembra has a thing in New York called Gratitude and Pasta. And he normally has dinners in his apartment or in his courtyard. And they're normally physical, but because of COVID, last year he went virtual. And I was doing one of Seth Godin's workshops, the creative workshop, which helped me finish writing the book. Someone along the lines mentioned this project in New York. And, you know, I'm interested in gratitude through, you know, trying to write 10,000 thank yous and other things. And that was enough to prompt me to just reach out to him, start a conversation. And then he invited me to one of these dinners. And, you know, 7:47 p.m. New York, 7:47 a.m. Hong Kong. I said, look, you have dinner, I'll have breakfast. And just joining that first event led to another series of productive accidents. And then the following month, he said, hey, would you like to come back and do another one of these dinners? You know, here are 3 dates. And I said, well, okay, instead of choosing one, how about I go to all 3 of them and I'll bring a friend each time. And one of them was another Chris Davis, a Texan living in Taipei that I'd met through LinkedIn. He loved it so much that the following week he decided to do like a virtual walking tour of his neighborhood for the people that had gone to this gratitude and pasta dinner. And I said, well, okay, well, that's the first edition of these walking tours. How about I do Hong Kong the following week? And it was during that Hong Kong walk that Chris Schembra wrote that one-line email saying, hey, you guys talk to Chris Palmer and I. So, you know, without that little series of connections, you know, we wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for COVID, you know, to be honest, we wouldn't be here either because those dinners wouldn't have gone virtual.
Right.
So, yeah. I like to think back of how things happened as much as anything, because once you know how something happened, it becomes repeatable, you know. So I've got a lot of conversations that have happened through LinkedIn in the same way, you know, Greg Larkin, Dr. Kate Stone, I think would be an amazing guest for here too, that I met through Greg. So Greg reached out to me from New York one day on LinkedIn and said, hey, I think I'd written something about creating a different type of speaker series or something. And he said, I wouldn't mind to learn more about that. And I said, well, let's have a chat. And it was a Saturday morning. And I had it on speakerphone and my wife could hear. And you could tell pretty much straight away that we clicked on a couple of different levels in terms of interests around entrepreneurship and other things. And Greg had written a book called This Might Get Me Fired. And it was about how, you know, you have to push boundaries in a corporate setting to make change, right? Because they're a little bit rigid sometimes. And I said, you know, I think your book would resonate over here. It'd be good if you could come to Hong Kong, stay with us. You know, we'll do some speaking events. And next thing you know, I was actually going to New York because I'd volunteered to speak at a training program, and ended up staying with his family, in his Scottish wife and their 2 kids in Brooklyn. And subsequent to that, has created this group called Punks and Pinstripes, which is kind of like creatives and, I guess, corporates combining, you know, so artists and more sort of traditional careers. And he does this speaker series. And one of the people that he's introduced us to is Kate Stone. And I'll share a video of hers that she just recently did where she interviews herself, describing the 2 sides of her personality, you know, the conservative Kate and the brave Kate, and how brave Kate has pushed her to go and do these adventures like hiking into the mountains and camping in the snow and all these other things. But it's amazing. I'll share it to you guys, and I think you'll enjoy it. And one day we'll have her on here for a conversation as well. Anyway, all of these connections, that's where the magic is. I think that's what you've discovered as well, Oskar, through your book. And also, actually, Chris, I mean, I should introduce how, you know, Chris, or maybe Chris, you could talk about how did you discover your gratitude sort of interest in gratitude, and then what's happened next. I think that'd be good for Oskar to understand as well.
Sure. Thanks, Peter. Well, I basically in 2013, my birthday was coming up on December 30th, and I decided through I was listening to a podcast, and I heard a little message in there, and it was basically that birthdays are like appreciation trophies. If you just celebrate one, it's just it was basically, if you want to celebrate your birthday, how about you make it about something else or somebody else? So I decided that I was going to write a letter to my mom, and I was going to honor my mother on my birthday. So I got up really early, and I wrote her, was essentially a gratitude letter, and I placed it on her Facebook wall because I wanted her to find it. I wanted to surprise her with it. So I did that in the morning, and then mid-morning, I normally would get my call from my parents, but I hadn't gotten my call. They'd normally call me and sing happy birthday to me. I had no call. So I decided I was going to check in with my father, to see, I still wanted that surprise. I didn't want to talk to my mom until she had a chance to read the message. And I got my dad on the phone, and he said happy birthday. And then I asked him about if mom read the letter, and he said that she had, and that she needed time with it and that she couldn't talk to me. And just to bring that statement a little bit more home is, mom, I'm sure I talked to her the day before. One of my closest, that's you would expect that from an estranged relationship, not a close relationship. A statement like, I need time to digest this. I can't talk to you. Because that's never happened. Actually, 35 years, that's never happened. We met later. It created a magical moment. Basically, like writing a gratitude letter is not magical. The writing of it is, anybody can write a gratitude letter, but what it can do is completely magical. It could surpass. It does amazing. It can do amazing things. So I didn't know at the time that was December 30th that my mom's cancer was going to come back, and on April 30th, 4 months the day later, she passed away in hospice. So so speaking to that, my dad, I'm going to step back one thing here, and then I'll fast forward, because this story I could talk, obviously I could take way too much time telling the story, but there's an amazing thing about gratitude. Gratitude stacks all the time. And just to speak in this stacking idea, when you write a letter, it's one stack. When somebody receives it, it's another stack. When you're together, that's another stack. When you put it publicly, the amazing thing about making gratitude public, or making something other people can see it, it becomes its own stack. So like my dad had his own stack, right? My sister had her own stack, and in this whole vein of stacking, I'm just telling you this because when my dad asked me, would you like to say something at my mom's funeral? I didn't have any desire to get up and talk, but I kept thinking about this letter, and I had my cousin actually read this letter at my mom's funeral. So now I'm sitting at my mom's funeral, hearing my words being read back to me. I'm going to tell you I love you more often. I'm going to spend more time here, make you more proud. And I have that stack, right, of this impossible, this scenario that's almost impossible. If you think about it, right? You write a letter, you don't foresee that being read to you at the person's funeral. So with that in mind, 2014 was really rough, but the end of the year, my birthday came up like it normally does. And I said, I want to do this again. So I wrote a letter to my dad, and it had a very similar effect. It was a much more serious letter. I looked at him as my hero. Honestly, seeing him and his pain gave me perspective on mine. Honestly, it really was. Like, she was my mother, but to him, she was his life. And it's evident, So fast forward, I decided we would build a website. I just wanted my little nugget was, I want to have people have this experience. I want to somehow facilitate the experience to happen. Right. So I built a website. I started initiating people to write letters, and the magic occurs. And it hits me that this amazing, after the first time I got a letter, it resonated so much with me. It made me cry, and I didn't know why I was crying. But after going through a checklist of emotions, I realized this beautiful letter from Kate to her parents solely exists because I asked her to write it. Like, this love letter exists because I asked, only because I asked. Again, not a superpower, just because you create the space, right? You ask and we create a space. Just like you're with Dear Hong Kong, you're creating a space. It's this very similar idea. You're creating a space for people to share your focus is on Hong Kong, and you're asking them to share their love for Hong Kong. You're creating a space for that, which is beautiful. And then you put it in a book. So people have love for Hong Kong, and you are allowing them to express that. And then you are building the gratitude art and putting it on the wall. That's what your book is. That's what I consider my book, the podcast, the interviews, all the hundreds of videos, everything I do is just gratitude art. It fills me up. I put it on the wall. So that's led me to where we are today, to Dear Gratitude that came out last year. I have a book called Dear 2020 that Peter did some really good help with, coming out next month. And just continually creating gratitude art and putting it on the wall. So that's I just want to be a catalyst for gratitude. That's all I want to do all day long. It fills me up more than anything in the world. And I'm just always looking for people that want to partner up in creating spaces for gratitude. Okay, there we go. I'll be quiet now. Thanks, guys.
That's beautiful.
It is.
Thanks, Oskar.
It's really powerful, and I think it reinforces this whole idea of getting those messages out there. I think particularly to parents. Like when I kind of stumbled across the power or importance of gratitude, it was through Mush Pandwani, who we interviewed. Right, he was speaking at General Assembly on the topic, the essence of an entrepreneur, and one of the things he mentioned was, if you have fresh running water, wherever you live, you're already better off than whatever it is, 80% of the people on the planet. And just to have that perspective was so powerful. And the next evening, I think I was on a flight to Melbourne. I had my notepad and I was trying to connect all these dots, right? Seth Godin was doing a daily blog for every day for whatever it is. I think right now it's about 20 years. And I'm like, I'm not going to write a daily blog about finance or banking. That wouldn't be super exciting. But maybe I could do something about gratitude, and there's a lot of people, that I can think, and starting with my wife at 1 out of 10,000, and, then our children, and then our helper Ivy, who's been with us for 15 years, and then my parents, and, and for the parents to see that, it's like they wouldn't normally get to see that type of, summary, and because, that type of stuff typically happens at a funeral. So that in itself has value. And then then you get interested in stories and ways of capturing stories. So your book is perfect. People can write essays and contribute and become published authors, even though they haven't, it's like a baby step. You're creating a stepping stone for maybe them wanting to go and do more writing after that. And then I discovered Story Corporation, or Story Corps, which is, encourages people to record interviews with parents and grandparents and anyone. And that's another amazing platform. If you haven't seen that, it's worth sharing. They won the TED Prize one year, and they turned it into an app, so anyone can record an interview with anyone, and it becomes a time capsule. It goes up into the cloud, and it's there forever. So anyway, maybe that'll resonate with Oskar. But I think the main message here is you talk about stacking. I talk about compounding. It's the same concept. Right? So, I discovered Creative Mornings because Tony Verb was taking the Helper documentary on sort of as a roadshow, and introducing it. I'd never heard of Creative Mornings until they were invited to speak there, and I've subsequently gone to so many of their events because, again, it's a engine for these new connections and collaborations and productive excellence. So, Oskar, what are you going to do next? What's the next big adventure? You're going to take your book world tour, or what's going to happen?
Well, I mean, I'm still speechless about Chris sharing.
Yeah.
Just want to say first that through our book, we found a lot of people with I resonate a lot. You have like a powerful story to share, and at some point in your life, you go like, okay, this is what I want to do. That's your purpose, and you go all the way through. And then I think the collection of these inspirational, powerful stories, and Peter yourself as well, like you're resonating with this idea of the serendipity and finding people and connections and magic everywhere. So I don't know, like as a spectator, when I see all these people unfolding and these stories, I'm so humble. Like, and I think people should read about these stories, know more about, connect to your podcast, read Peter's book. Like they should find time for these things, because this is good stuff. This is the real stuff that move us. And also, I mean, if you are in this wavelength of gratitude and positivity and creation, because like the productive accidents is like creation of it's like a tree. It's like different possibilities expanding. So if you're in expansive mode, then everything's going to be fine. Like as humans, we should choose like, okay, are we in like a defensive mode, like the world is dangerous or something, and we're defending, or we're in expansive mode and we are creating, we are connecting.
Which is basically the whole abundance idea, right? You look at singularity university, and we've got all the tools to solve the big problems. We just need to stop.
So I think,
basically,
answering your question, I think my next step would be something aligned to that, right? So trying to spread this message of positivity to others. I don't know whether, I mean, I learned an awful lot about, like interviewing people, and even about photography. We have in the book, we have these amazing portraits that some photographers took for us. And I don't know, just kind of making use of these connections and tools to do something in that space. So very, very inspired already by.
I think that's the magic of having a creative project, right? Whether Chris, I wasn't planning to, I had it on my sort of to-do list to try and turn Productive Accidents into 10 different formats, and that was inspired by a friend who was interviewed, Richard Clayton, who was interviewed on a podcast, and then someone in the UK listened to that podcast and decided to turn it into a cartoon. And that cartoon brought the ideas to life in a totally different way. And I just thought, well, okay, I'll write the book, but digital can be one format, physical hard copy can be another. Podcasts could be something else. Maybe someone will turn that into a cartoon. Audio book is another. So, getting someone to read these and turn that into a different format. Just play with these ideas. And that's the recurring theme here, right? We've all learned new skills. Chris was the one who's accelerated the podcast conversations because he just said, yeah, let's just do it without any real preparation. We just, said, okay, how about this Friday, before work or whatever. And we started with Thor, and actually a follow-up on Thor. Chris, I don't know if you saw. He got
his wife's he's married, right? And she's actually in Hong Kong, right?
Came to Hong Kong all the way from Denmark, which is amazing, right? Because back then he was kind of stuck and couldn't get out of here, but they managed to creatively, right? I think he said they got married virtually, right?
Yeah, he did.
And then now she's come over here, and I guess she's gone through quarantine and they're together, which is amazing.
Has Oskar, are you familiar with Thor at all? Has Pete ever told you about him?
Yes, actually, I've been trying to invite him to some of our events, but he's been busy lately. We have a common friend. He lives in Germany. So my friend was telling me about him. Peter was telling me about him. And then the moment I read his story, I was like, okay, I want to meet this guy. But, so I'm sure we will meet eventually.
Absolutely, yeah. And actually, Adrian Bellick was the one who I just recently reconnected with. He's just been offline for like 3 months, making documentaries in the Philippines. He's sort of stuck there, since COVID. But he was the one who saw an article about Thor, and I think it was on CNN or something. Said, hey, you should meet this guy. And I reached out to Thor and I said, hey, how about you come around for a barbecue, and it'd be cool to hear your story. And so that Sunday he came around, and we've been connected ever since. So yeah, didn't think he'd still be here. No one thought, I guess, COVID was going to go this long, but yeah, he's made the most of it, that's for sure. He's hiked every mountain in Hong Kong. He's promoting the place nonstop, and Red Cross is one of, he's an ambassador for that. But yeah, he's an amazing guy. So yeah, good reminder. I need to catch up with him too.
Yeah, we had a great talk with him when I met him. I just loved. I was thinking of him earlier when you were talking, Oskar, just because you were talking about how great Hong Kong is. He was speaking about, obviously he's been on the road 7 years, and he had just read this book about Shackleton's adventure through Antarctica, and he actually recommended it to me. He's like, it's a true expedition where they get in the middle of Antarctica. This is in the early 1900s, and they have to basically abandon the ship in the middle of Antarctica, like 1,200 miles from any life. And he's like, I'm reading this book and realizing I don't have problems. He's like, I'm in Hong Kong. It's like, he's like, and I was thinking it's the same thing with like the book A Man's Search for Meaning. If you read A Man's Search for Meaning, you realize, even though we all have our problems, right? Like those are real problems, right? Like being stuck in the middle of Antarctica, that's a real problem. Being in a camp, that's a real problem. Being in Hong Kong, that's not a real problem. It's like, but I love it. He's like, I'm locked in Hong Kong, It's like, and you. It was beautiful. I just loved it. Was such a perspective. It was just a beautiful perspective from a man that's been everywhere and having to stay somewhere and being separated. And then this whole you know, it was just a beautiful moment that it really touched me. And I read the book too, and I totally recommend the book. It's a great book.
Yeah, it was all about
for many people I met, whenever they have been through a lot of things in life, the perspective of life changes. It's like, okay, life is an experience, and I'm just going to enjoy it. And it's a different point of view of problems and everything is like not a big thing anymore. Like, and I love that. I mean, when I meet people like this, like, wow. And they give you this positive energy, right? Like nothing really matters much.
All right. You know, I've been talking about the same idea a lot recently with other people. It's, you know, we all get to decide what every moment means. You know, we are the one assigning this is bad or good. And unfortunately, our mind, you know, it's like there's a parable I keep telling, and if you guys maybe have heard, it's like, you know, it's the farmer. Okay. He has a farm. Okay. And then he gets a horse, and somebody goes, well, this is a good thing, right? And he goes, well, we'll see. You know, and then the horse ends up kicking his son and breaking his son's leg. And they go, well, this is a bad thing, right? And he goes, well, we'll see. And then, you know, war breaks out, and they're like taking away all the able-bodied boys. He's like, well, this is a good thing, right? He's like, well, we'll see. It's just like, you don't know where that, you know, at the moment, something can totally be a failure, but you don't know where it's going to catapult you to, you know, it's like, you have no idea. And honestly, if our minds were more open to go, well, we'll see, we'll be quicker to be more open to just experiencing and moving forward, opposed to negativity going, this is a bad thing. And then when we do that, it's like, you know, it's almost like we're like, okay, it's like you know, but I've been thinking a lot about that, because we get to decide what anything means. We get to decide what it means. And that's a powerful thing. It's powerful.
That's why I like the word responsibility, right? It's like you have the ability to choose your response to anything, you know, and you can be negative or you can be positive. And I think positive seems to be the right way to think about it, even if it's
I was in a retreat last weekend, and the idea that was the main idea of the retreat was, we are the guardians of our own energy. And I really like this term, because it's like we can actually choose which kind of energy we project to the world. Like Chris, you were saying, like, okay, negative energy or positive. It's like it's no big deal. It's whatever.
I met some people that I read it somewhere. I don't know, but it's a recurring theme. You just reminded me. You know, people talk about time management, but it's more effective to focus on energy management.
Energy management, yeah. Right.
Do the stuff that gives you energy is kind of probably one of the things I've sort of stumbled across, and it's usually these random conversations with new people, whether it's through LinkedIn or you know, you've got 15 appointments per week, even on a complete work day. You could meet someone really early before work, or for a quick lunch, or after work. Potentially that's 15 conversations that are going to, you know, not all of them are going to turn into magic, but in kind of my experience, probably about 80% lead to something useful. Either you can help them directly with whatever they're working on, or you say, you know, 2 or 3 people that you should introduce them to so that they can advance whatever they care about. But so even that story that you were talking about just then, Chris, did you get that from Derek Sivers? That's one of his favorite stories too.
I think it's an old parable, so I'm not sure who I initially heard it from.
But he talks about that a lot, and in fact, it's on his website, I'm sure. Anyway, Derek Sivers is another really interesting guy that I kind of stumbled across when he made CD Baby, and he wrote a book called Anything You Want.
Right.
And as part of that book, it's you know, he kind of was very successful, but he also made a lot of mistakes. So he wrote a book capturing sort of the insights. It's a really short book, but because CD Baby was a platform for independent musicians, he just worked out a deal, said, hey, how about you give me one of your singles, and I'm going to give it away with the book. So I think you get 3,000 MP3 tracks with the book, and it's a real mixture of music, you know, hip hop, heavy metal, opera, whatever. But for $10 for the book, you'd be basically getting 300 albums worth of music. So it's a no-brainer to buy it. And then only because of that book, I've sort of researched, okay, who published his book? And it was on a Domino Printing or something. And anyway, okay, who's behind that? And that's Seth Godin. That's how I discovered Seth Godin. And I thought, oh, who is this guy? And I went on his newsletter. And, you know, you get this one sentence or a paragraph every day for the last number of years. And that's how all of these things end up converging, whether it's the Alt MBA or Creatives Workshop or Storytelling Workshop and all these other things that he's created. So anyway, and then I actually really enjoy reaching out to authors of books too, and I think you guys probably do as well. But I reached out to Derek, this was before he was interviewed by Tim Ferriss and, part of all that. And at one stage, I remember asking him, because he's a musician, I said, hey, my second daughter's about to start guitar. Should we get steel strings or nylon strings? And 10 emails later, he'd gone into the pros and cons of all of this. And anyway, he's an interesting guy. If you haven't followed him, I recommend.
What strings did he recommend?
Steel strings, because you form calluses.
The calluses. Okay. I was going to say that I had read his book, but I'm on the back end of that because I did hear him on Tim Ferriss, and I was like, wow, this guy's awesome, and that is an excellent book. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And he's just self-published 3 other books, which I also reached out to him as well, saying, hey, are you going to, you could do what you did for CD Baby for publishing, right? You could be an alternative to Amazon. People can upload instead of music, upload their books and sell it through a platform. He said, no, I'm not interested in that, but talk to my book agent in the US. So I started a conversation with her about that. And now subsequently talking to your editor as well, and I think somewhere along the lines, there'll be some collaboration that happens through that, which is kind of fun. Anyway.
Speaking of collaborations, I want to get back to, I'm thinking, Oskar, I don't have your book, but I just wanted to, I'd love to, maybe we could do this together, me, you, and one other person in your book. We could do just an episode where they get to read their story and then we get to talk and dig more into it. So I'm just letting you know if that's something you're interested in doing, just like a one-off, just to, I'd love to hear one of the stories from the people. It'd be great to share your book and have a conversation with you. I'm letting you know, I would enjoy that. Maybe, Peter, if he wanted to be a part of it too. I'm just saying, I would like to, if you'd creatively like to explore that idea, I'm completely open to it. So.
That's a beautiful idea. Yes, let's do that.
You can even do all 80 of them. That's ambitious, but it could be another one of your channels, right? How many channels do you have right now, Chris? Like, I know you've got, productive accidents. You've got one around
sobriety and gratitude. I just started gratitude and movement with my friend who's a yoga instructor. That lives in Las Vegas. She's awesome. So I've got 3 partners. I'm talking with, I do a birthday podcast. So that's my own. And then I do a long form podcast. So I've got 5 different series. But I enjoy, Oskar. I'll tell you, I just, this goes back to Peter's idea of productive. I just love getting together with other people and meeting their friends. Like that's what's so Peter's got great friends, right? I'm sitting here talking to one of them, right? You get that. So I know you get it. It's like when Peter, I was like, if I could talk to Peter about getting on the podcast, the cool thing is like, it takes the weight off me looking for guests. He already has friends. He has cool friends. I can make graphics. We just did a time and then we have a great time. And that's the same idea when I go, well, I'm sure, you have this beautiful book with these beautiful stories and you're a cool guy. So it's like, if we could do something that's easy and fun and it also showcases what we're doing, then it's like, it's such a win-win-win. And I love it all day long. I enjoy doing it. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just thinking like, we're talking about energy and choices that we make in life. Like I remember this morning when I met Peter. So it's Creative Mornings is like 8 o'clock in the other side of Hong Kong. I live in Lama. I need to take a ferry. I need to take a lot of transportation, everything. So maybe the brain is saying like, stay in bed for a while or something like that. I mean, who is this guy? I don't know him. But then somehow we make the decision, okay, I'm going to go there. I'm going to show up. I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to talk to him afterwards. And then I imagine like after that conversation, like the different avenues that started, including this last one. Like you're talking about this idea about bringing the life of the book into words. So yeah, it's crazy. Like it's the whole idea of the productive accidents, right? So you put yourself in a place that like you don't know what's coming up afterwards, but then magic things happen.
Yeah, I like to. My metaphor is it's like I landed on planet Peter. I like when I meet people. That's my thing because I would never have met Peter in a million years if it wasn't for a friend and like these social networks and the fact that technology or where it is, right? It's like I landed. Peter and I never would have met each other. You know what I mean? Never. He's on the other side of the world, but yet that's my excitement when I meet new people, period. I just go, I'm landing on this person's planet. I don't know what that means, but I'm just excited about it. That's part of my process of productive accidents. I'm just like, I always want to have the conversation because I don't know where it's going to go. And maybe it doesn't go anywhere. And I'm okay with that. Like, it's like getting up to, I want to keep swinging. I'm all about swinging all day long. It's just fun, right?
You know what? We should start the conversation like this and just say, hey, we don't know where this is going to go, but based on, our experience, if you have this mindset of, okay, by the end of this 1 hour conversation, we're going to come up with a new collaboration. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's, a one-off episode or a whole series, whatever the recurring theme is. The bigger picture for Dear Hong Kong is celebrating tolerance, diversity, inclusion, respect. That should resonate anywhere and everywhere right now. So, no brainer. You could easily have spin-offs around that. So, and then Resolve Foundation, that's exactly why it resonates. So as soon as you described Dear Hong Kong, I'm like, well, for sure, you're going to bring together these people. So I don't know, have you ever come to one of the baller dinners, Oskar? I told you about that?
I haven't.
So it's dinners with no more than 10 people, because you want to make sure you have time to speak to, everyone, get to meet this, hear them. And it follows a really the same format wherever you go in the world. Patrick Ip was the guy who founded it. I met him because I was helping him prepare for TEDx when he grew up in California, but he's got relatives here that have restaurants dating back to 1860. So even that is amazing, right? I wanted to understand more about that. And when he came, we've been to one of his restaurants, and eventually he introduced me to this dinner series that he created, Baller Dinners. And it's all about, getting off devices and meeting in person and hearing each other's stories, discovering what, projects they're working on. It could be a book like Dear Hong Kong or anything else. And then the next step is, how can I help? The whole mindset is, how can I help somebody without expecting anything in return? And now there's like 1,700 people, that have attended one of these dinners around the world. If I go to New York, or if I've been to San Francisco, I just throw out a message on this private Facebook group, say, hey, I'm going to be there Monday to Friday. I've got, Monday night free. And before you know it, someone you don't even know will jump on and say, yep, I've booked a restaurant. 10 people you've never heard of converge, and this conversation continues. So you've got 80 people in your book. That's 8 dinners right there. Just random connections that we can bring together. Maybe it's in, the Zen Den in Manor, or it doesn't really matter where it is, but, that's another little collaboration we could do.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. They use somebody's restaurant from the book to have other people from the book meet up. That's excellent. I love that.
And then while we're there, we could do a little, a corner for the, your gratitude pop-up, which I think is an amazing idea. So, Oskar, how often at weddings or parties, they'll have a little booth. You can go in and put silly hats on and stuff. Instead of doing that, Chris is, I think, taking that to another level, where you go in and think about somebody that you're grateful for and record a video. And then that has a life of its own, share that link on social media or to that person directly. You could do that at any event, whether it's a corporate event or a wedding or, one of these dinners. And, I think you've created a goal of 10,000 videos, right, Chris? So
yeah, I've created a goal of 10,000 videos, but on top of that, I've expanded that to inspiring 1 million moments. So the cool thing about so the cool thing is, if somebody were to do this somewhere else and they did, say, 10 videos, or they just decided to talk about gratitude to their 10 people, right? Like, all we're trying to do is create the space. But speaking, just letting Oskar know, like, because I've done videos across the country asking people what they're grateful for, I realized that straight up, the easiest way to create the moment is just ask. You know what I mean? Like, it's the great thing is, as soon as you ask, like, who in your life are you grateful for, regardless of what you tell me, like, I've created the space because you've asked yourself the question. And honestly, you don't have to answer me, but it's like, it's got the space. But the amazing thing is about the pop-up, is I can create the space for as many people as there are, and I can put it out online so they can share it. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to create the gratitude art, and then I'm going to put it in a place where you're going to know where it is so you can share it with that person. So I'm trying to, the idea of the pop-up is I'm trying to complete a loop. You understand? I really I like to create the moment, but I want it to go home. I so much want it to go home. And that's what's so great about the pop-up is it goes, it complements everything. Music festival. It could be a wedding. It could be a birthday. It could be Mother's Day. It could be it could be a restaurant. I mean, it could be anywhere. Absolutely anywhere. Yeah.
Thanksgiving has its own day for it. So, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. So, but I've done this and it works. And if anybody sees it, they get it. So, yeah. So
I'm going to play one of Chris's roles here. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. You've got to give me 3 names without any explanation. Name one person that you're grateful for.
My
First
mom.
person that pops into your mind. Okay. I'm going to ask you the same question again. Who are you grateful for?
My dad.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the same question again. Who are you grateful for?
I'm grateful about my teachers through life.
Okay. Anyone in particular?
Many of them.
What's one that's popping into your head right now, though? Name one.
Some like a school teacher that taught me a lot of things about the world, like elementary school teacher.
And that was Mrs.
Huh?
So who was that person? We're trying to get
an actual name.
Individual.
Oh, Antonio.
and
right?
Antonio. Yes.
So
he was your elementary school teacher?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Is he going to be listening to this?
I don't think so.
You might have to
I
find
share.
Yeah.
I lost contact.
Okay.
Yeah. Through life, we come to different stages and everything, and then you lose contact with people that were meaningful to you. But then
I like this because what Chris usually highlights, and it's a typical pattern that we kind of see. Most people think of their parents, their wife, their husband, whatever else. You need to go 2 or 3 levels, or 4 or 5, until you get someone that's unrelated to relatives. And
it becomes random opposed to focus. Like it becomes,
right.
You know what I mean? That's why. The great thing is the go-tos are great. Don't get me wrong, but it's like I wanted to hear you say Antonio because that's not a go-to. You know what I mean? Like that's why but the cool thing is you got to go hit all those places anyways. It isn't like but if you go a couple layers deep, it becomes random opposed to your go-to. So
it's very powerful.
Yeah. So the fact I'm hearing you remember your elementary school teacher's name, which is awesome. I don't think I remember any of my elementary school teacher's names. So I was very impressed by that. So, it's good stuff.
The thing is that you can go on and on, right? Like we are grateful for so many people in our lives that they shape the way we are, and it's beautiful to think about it, to push yourself to actually go into that, because there's so much gratitude, right?
Oh, there's treasures. There's so many treasures. Well, that's like, it's again, like it's the same idea. We're sitting here. How are we sitting here? Right? Like who are the connectors? And then there's so many stories. I mean, I was talking with an amazing guy named John this last week, and he's a stunt man. He's a speaker. And when he was 22, he was getting into being a stunt man. And these 2 guys, these 2 guys said, we really like what you're doing. We believe in you. We want to train you for free. Right. And he tells me this story, and he keeps telling the story. He goes, well, a year later, I'm helping somebody move, and I pick up this 80-pound weight, and I literally break my spine. And next thing I know, I'm in the hospital, and the doctor's saying, you're going to be paralyzed for life. Right. Anyways, amazing story, right? So he tells me, Lord, then I go back and I go, what were the name of the 2 guys that believed in you? Because he ended up being a stuntman. Like a year and a half later, he ended up wiggling his toes and ended up, it's a story of triumph. But that little pocket, right? He just mentioned to me, there was these 2 guys that believed in me. And then he moved on to the story. But when I got back into that, like when I asked that question, like, who are these guys? Why are you grateful for them? Like it was beautiful. He's like, this guy specifically said to me, I believe in you. I want to help you. I want to train you. And, he said, and he went further, right? He said, I was a child of eight, 7, I was the 7th child. My dad was an alcoholic. He never showed me love. And this man gave me that love that I'd never had. Like he believed in me. Like, but you understand when he was telling the story, because he normally just tells it, nobody focuses on, you know what I mean? Like That's the relationship, right? That's
Mhm.
beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? I love sharing that. Like it was just a little pocket waiting for me to go, who was that? Why are you grateful for them?
Mhm.
You know, it's like, it's the same with your teacher. It's like, I think it's beautiful. Yeah. There's so much, right? There's so much when we tell our life story, like there's so many pockets of beautiful moments and people that, that's where the heart is, right? It's obviously, it's great we're here, but it's like, who are the people that along the way? Like that's what I want to hear all day long.
Yeah. And I think the more you go into that, the more your brain is rewired to automatically go into that as well.
Totally.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Very cool. Well, we're at the hour. Should we call it? And then we can stay on and have a chat? Or anything else you want to wrap up with?
Just Oskar is the best. Where's the best place for people want to reach out to you? And is it the website, or do you have any?
To find us in social media, so just searching for Dear Hong Kong. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have our online store where people can buy the book. Shop at dearhongkong.org. So yeah, I mean, anybody that is interested, that they want to get involved in the project as well. We're a group of volunteers, so it's just the people that are passionate about this idea. And yeah, just drop us a line, and then we can talk about. I mean, I'm excited about your suggestion about that we can do together. I love it.
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm making the commitment right now. We're gonna do one. Just that's the experiment, right? That's the accident of this. Is we'll do one. If Peter'd like to be a part of that, it'd be great. If not, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's like a spring off of this. Yeah. So it'll be a Dear Hong Kong and gratitude episode or whatever. That's gonna be fun.
Awesome. All of these, it's like a Venn diagram that keeps on interlocking, you know? So 3 circles that are converging. We just got to name that middle point. What are we going to call that?
Oh, you're talking about where they're what?
So we've got gratitude space / productive action / Dear Hong Kong. In the middle, what is that intersection? What are we going to call that? Magic or whatever you want to call it. You know, who knows?
Oh,
we can think about that.
For sure, man. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Oskar. Thanks a lot. I'm, you know, if we're all, I'll close this out here and we can continue talking for a few more minutes. If you guys are available. So, all right. Well, I'm Chris with Oskar and Peter here. Just remind everybody they have a lot to be grateful for. And if you know, speaking to Oskar's project, you know, and even what I said earlier, you know, your city, where you're at, there's a lot of gratitude for where you're living. I'm sure there is. So if it allows you to think in the process of what are you grateful for in the place you're living, then I think that's something you can totally, it's very simplistically a way to get into a state of gratitude in your mindset. So, all right, well, yeah, we all have a great time and we'll be seeing you soon. And